is Starry Ari's ASMR. I am Ari, and today I am set up in my kitchen because I would like to make some Cadbury Mini Egg cookies. I love Cadbury Mini Eggs. These are my favorite Easter candy. And I saw a recipe to do I guess it was kind of like M&M cookies, but with Cadbury Mini Eggs and chocolate chips. So I want to try and make that today. And since I am set up in my kitchen, I am going to be doing some noisy things. There will probably be parts of the video that are going to be voiceover, and I'll just kind of explain the process, show you what I'm doing, and then hopefully we will end up with some very cute and delicious cookies at the end. So let's start off with the ingredients. So for this recipe, we need 1 cup of unsalted butter. I am using margarine, and with that, this margarine is actually salted, so I'm not adding extra salt just to make up for this. But in each stick is half a cup. So I need 2 sticks, and these have been resting for a little bit to get to room temperature. And then we need 2 large eggs, brown sugar, flour, regular granulated sugar, baking powder, baking soda, vanilla extract. I'm just using cheap imitation vanilla. We need chocolate chips, and of course our Cadbury Mini Eggs. So I am going to go ahead and jump right in and get started. I've already preheated my oven to 350 degrees. So the next thing that we need to do is mix our butter and sugars together. So I'm going to move some of this off to the side, and we're going to go ahead and use the stand mixer. So I have our brown sugar, our granulated sugar, and our butter here. So I'm going to start by putting our butter into the stand mixer. Then we need half a cup of white sugar. And now we need 1.5 cups of brown sugar. Using my stand mixer with the paddle attachment, I'm going to cream the butter and sugars together. And while that is mixing, I'm just going to put our dry ingredients into a mixing bowl. So I need 3 cups of all-purpose flour, trying to figure out which side I wanted to do it on. And if you've seen any of my other baking videos, I always have the disclaimer. I am an amateur baker at best, so I am probably making many, many mistakes in the way that I'm measuring things out, but we're just baking cookies for fun, so it's not too serious. And the butter and sugars had been mixing for about a minute, so I went ahead and stopped the stand mixer so that I could scrape the sides once I'm finished mixing together the dry ingredients. And then we need 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. And 1 teaspoon of baking soda. And then I am skipping the salt, as I said earlier, just because I used salted margarine. And I'm going to take a fork and try and just break up any clumps before I take a whisk to really make sure that everything is nicely mixed together. I definitely hate when you get just like a tiny clump of like baking soda in a baked good and you can kind of taste it. And then here I am just scraping the paddle and the sides of the bowl. And then I'm going to let this mix again just to make sure that everything is fully mixed together. And then once that is done, we're going to add our vanilla extract and our eggs. So I'm going to slow down and stop the mixer and lift up the top. And then let's go ahead and crack our 2 eggs. I feel like the second egg kind of gave me a little bit of trouble coming open. I was really trying to make sure that I wasn't getting shell in it. And then we need 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. I accidentally got a little bit on the side, so I wanted to clean that up before I put the cap back on. And then I'm just going to kind of push some of the extra dough off of the paddle and scrape the sides one more time. And then we're going to mix this until fully combined. It's very satisfying watching the stand mixer going. And then I'm going to lift the top and scrape the sides once again. I don't know if all stand mixers kind of need to have this done, but ours certainly does. We have this Hamilton Beach stand mixer, so we don't have the KitchenAid, so maybe those are better at kind of getting the sides. I'm not sure, but it works fine for me. So now I went ahead and slowed down the speed so that I could start slowly adding in the dry ingredients. I wanted to try and go on the right side, and then I accidentally got a lot of flour on the top of the paddle attachment, so I decided to just go from the left side. And I used this measuring cup to help me kind of slowly add it in, and then once I got down to my last bits of flour, I just kind of poured it in from the bowl. And we're gonna let that mix again for a little bit. Now I'm going to stop the stand mixer and add in our crushed Cadbury Mini Eggs. The recipe says that you could chop the Cadbury eggs, but I was not having any success with that, so I put them in a Ziploc bag and hit them with my rolling pin to crush them. And then when I was mixing the dough, I kind of felt like maybe I had done more Cadbury eggs than the recipe called for, so I only wanted to add half of the chocolate chips at first, give that a good stir, and see if I wanted to add more after that, which I decided I did want to do, so I just added the rest of them. And now the dough is ready to go. So I'm getting my first baking pan with the silicone baking mat. And then I'm going to go ahead and drop some cookie dough into little round balls. You'll see that I think that I was doing quite large bits of cookie dough for this first batch. And I hadn't done drop cookies in quite a while, so I'd kind of forgotten how much cookie dough should go into each ball. So these ones are pretty large. I'd also tried to just use a regular spoon, and I was having some trouble kind of scooping the dough, so I decided to get our ice cream scoop, which doesn't have the convenient like metal thing that helps get whatever's inside the scoop out, but it was still easier to actually scoop the dough with than the spoon. And then I just used the spoon to kind of help get the dough out of it. And then I wanted to add some Cadbury eggs on the tops of the cookies just to make sure that we get some of that cute, pretty pastel color. So I wanted to show you how I crushed them. So I put a few in the Ziploc bag that I'd used earlier. And then I'm just sealing that up. And I have them on just one of our old busted cutting boards. And then I just take the rolling pin and just hit them, just like that. And they ended up crushing pretty nicely, and we get lots of nice bits of egg that I can put just right on the tops of the cookies like that. This first batch, I wasn't sure how they were going to bake, so I only did the eggs on half of the cookies. And then we're going to throw this in the oven and bake for 10 to 12 minutes. And by editing magic, my cookies are all ready to go. And here are the monstrosities. I audibly laughed when I opened the oven and saw how large these had gotten. I'm glad that I had waited to place my second batch of cookies on a second sheet, because I learned that I should do much smaller balls of dough. I also decided to do less cookies on this sheet just in case the recipe was just spreading out quite a bit anyways. I wasn't too sure if it was just the size of the cookie dough that I had done or if the recipe also spread, because there were some comments in the recipe reviews that were saying that their dough had spread quite a bit. And I'm just placing some of the crushed eggs on the tops of the cookies. And let's bake this second batch. And while those are baking, our first batch has actually been sitting on the cookie sheet for about 5 minutes, and it's ready to transfer to the wire cooling rack. I like to put paper towels under the cooling rack just to help catch any crumbs. And I'm going to use this metal spatula to help me cut and transfer the cookies over. I did really like how the ones with the eggs that I placed on top looked, so I decided that I would do that for the other batches. I just think they were cute being able to see the pastel colors on the top, because the other ones were just kind of baked into the dough, so you couldn't really see them on the top very well. I like to make my cookies kind of large. I don't like making very small cookies, but these ones were pretty large even for me. And our second batch of cookies is done and out of the oven, and I like how these ones turned out a lot. I think that the coloring was really nice, and I like the pastel color of the eggs on top. And I found these cute Easter paper plates. I only have one wire cooling rack, and these cookies at this point had been cooling for a while, so I wanted to pull them and move them out of the way to be able to cool the next batches. I also was impatient and I wanted to try one of these cookies. And they were really good. They're very tasty. And then let's do our last batch. And for my oven, I did 12 minutes and I feel like they baked exactly to the level that I wanted them to. I probably could have baked them for a little bit longer, but I kind of like chewier cookies. And I did kind of a massive roll there because I had a decent amount of dough left. But then I realized I had even more dough left on the spatula, so I wanted to do kind of a smaller cookie over there too. And then I'm just placing the Cadbury eggs. Some of them were different sizes, so I was kind of figuring out which cookie made the most sense for which egg. And let's bake this last batch. And now our second batch was ready to be transferred over to the cooling rack. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Their shapes are a little funky, but I think that they're really cute. I was also thinking this would have been a really, really easy dessert to do for like a baby shower, because you could pick out just the pink or the blue eggs. And here is our last batch of cookies out of the oven. So I gave these about 5 minutes on the pan and then transferred these over to the cooling rack as well. I really liked the addition of the chocolate chips because I love M&M cookies, but if you only have M&Ms, sometimes you don't get as much chocolate as you might want, unless you use like mini M&Ms. But I thought that this was a really good balance between the bigger Cadbury eggs and the chocolate chips. And here are some pictures of the cookies on the cooling rack. Like I said, I think they look a little funky with their shapes, but I thought that they were still really cute and they were really delicious. And then here is how I prepared them for my husband to bring into work. I just put them in a circle and then I filled the center with extra Cadbury eggs. It's always really nice to be able to bake cookies for him to bring into work, because then I can try out different recipes and keep a reasonable amount of cookies for just the two of us, and then the rest can get sent off. And his coworkers love having treats, so it works out for everyone. And that was the cute Easter spring themed Cadbury Mini Egg cookies that I made. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.